really,
Let's see.
Make a preparation.
I got something for you all.
Professionalism.
I
Give you
tell
all-
you. I tell
Give
you.
you all a little time on just speaking, all you know where you're coming from.
Wow, look at this.
I want you all to know, God said be ready, I've got to put you all in everything.
The vice president's already.
We ain't getting into logistics right now. But I work, by God's grace, I work hard on this because this is not an easy topic.
No.
This is a topic you got to do research from.
Thank
And
you.
you all will know, based on my presentation, that some research was done, even though it was in a short period of time. So I ain't gonna shortchange you guys. You all will get the full dose tonight.
Oh my goodness. So without further, thank you, Carlton.
There were 8 persons in the ark, is the topic that was assigned to me. Where did the races come from? Well, it would be logical to say that the races would have to come from the persons who were otherwise be saved from the flood, who were in the ark. Now, let's look at who were in the ark. The Genesis account in Genesis chapter 17 to 16. There were 8 persons in the ark: Noah, his wife, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, along with Noah's wife, his sons. And you're talking to persons. Japheth. And it's right there on that table of chart. And you'll get going into the depths of that. But we're talking about the human race now, because of course, you know, there were animals also in that ark somehow. Now, races is defined as a category of humankind that shares certain distinction physical traits. The term ethnicity is more broadly defined as a large group of people classed according to the common racial, national, tribal, religious, linguistic, or cultural origin or background. Side point. The questions assume that there are more than one race. Now, we can get back to this. Let me just say this. God only made one race, and that's the human race. But I will deal with that later in this message. So let's look at Noah, and particularly his 3 sons, because these were the only men in the world at the time, and 4 women who were in the ark. Noah was an old man, but despite being 600 years old, he was strong and lived 350 more years after the flood. Now, watch this. In the Genesis, we see the introduction of an important righteous man, and follow through. And we then will introduce these 3 sons briefly. Noah eventually passed. He was a great man of faith, whom God used. And we will see the Genesis post-flood of how his 3 sons came and populated the known world. The Old Testament history and overview of the saint. Okay, let me just give you some references. I tell you I did some research. So I get this information from Old Testament history and overview of the sacred history and truths by William Wilbur Fields, and Bible History 1 by Richard Rogers, Sunset School of Preaching. I also got some information from some experts on this subject. Let's look closely at the 3 sons, the curse, and the prophecy. The period after the flood. The sons of Noah in the Bible story, Genesis 9, 18 and 19. In the Bible story, the names of the son of Noah are listed, first of all, following the completion of God's covenant with Noah. Noah's sons were the ancestors of all people now living. All the people in the human race are related because all are descendants or ancestors of Noah. Through the 3 sons, we should treat one another like loving family members. Shem, these ancestors of the Semites who lived in fertile Crescent and Arabia, including Jews, Arabs, Assyrians, and others. Ham is the ancestors of the Hamites, who lived in North Africa, and Canaan in the lower Mesopotamia, Sumer. They included the Egyptians, Ethiopians, and probably other Africans. And the Canaanites, Hamites, include the black race, there we go with that word again, but also others. Japheth is the ancestor of the Japherites, often called Indo-Europeans. They live in South Russia, Asia Minor, Greece, and Iran, Media. Japheth is the ancestor of the Europeans and Asians, probably included the Oriental people. Now, I want to be a little history. You all might know this already, but let me just give you a drawback. With the Noah, you all know with Noah drunkenness and about the curse and all this stuff, right? So let me just leave with this. Noah drunken. The curse upon Canaan, Genesis 9, 20 and 28. Noah soon demonstrated that the curse that Adam brought on the earth and mankind continued on after the flood. He fell victim to drunkenness. Intoxication was surely practiced by the evil generation before the flood, who were eating and drinking. Matthew 24 and 36. Noah was a man of the soil and planted a vineyard, a land of Armenia, the area around Mount Ararat. It is favorable for growing grapevines. Noah drank of the wine and became drunk and lay naked in his tent. In that condition, he was seen by his son Ham. At that time, the difference in character of people showed clearly. Ham appears to have considered his father's nakedness almost amusing and a topic for conversation. Shem and Japheth, the other two sons, were modestly covered their father. A mind focused on God does not delight in jokes about fleshly things. When Noah awoke from intoxication, he found out, or knew by some means, what his youngest son, little son, had did. Noah then spoke prophetically of the future character and experience of his sons. Noah prophesied appears to possess a divine inspiration. Though Ham was the offender when Noah was drunken, no curse was pronounced by Noah upon him. Watch this. Rather, a curse was pronounced 3 times upon Ham's son Canaan, 9, 24, 26, and 27. The exact reason for the curse upon Canaan is not told at this point. The prophecy look ahead to the time when Canaanites will be expelled from the land, primarily because of their involvement. Canaanites will expel from the land, primarily because of their involvement in sexual excesses and in cruelty. The Canaanites became involved in the worship of Baal and Anna. The legends about these false gods are full of ungoverned sex stories. Probably the character shown by Ham was concentrated most greatly in his descendants through Canaan. The curse upon Canaan does not imply that there was a curse pronounced upon all Ham's descendants, in particular upon the black races. No Hamites were cursed except Canaan. The Canaanites who were cursed were not the black race, but similar in appearance to Jews and Arabs. Noah said to Shem, "Blessed be the Lord Yahweh of the God Shem." The Semites, in particular the Jews, preserved the knowledge of the true God and godliness were. Semites like Job and Abraham have been lights for mankind. Canaan became the slave of Shem when the Jews, led by Joshua and King David, conquered the land of Canaan. Noah said to Japheth, "May God extend or enlarge the territory of Japheth." May Japheth, you know, Japheth is one of the sons of Noah, so Japheth was the one who Noah really blessed. And may Japheth live in tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his slave. So Canaan was the son of Ham, who the curse was put on. Japheth was to occupy a large territory that his brothers had. This has come to pass. Japheth was the ancestor of the Europeans and Asians, and they occupied by far the largest portion of the land on earth. Japheth's descendants came to live in the tents of Shem when many of them accepted the God of the Jews and the Christians. Canaan became a slave to Japheth when the Greeks, like Alexander the Great, and the Romans conquered the lands where the Canaanites lived. Noah lived 350 years after the flood and died at the age of 950. He outlived the 5th and 8th of his descendants, Peleg and Nahor. He was 120 years contemporary with Terah, the father of Abraham, and died only 2 years before the birth of Abraham himself in 2008 BC. The information about man's most ancient history did not have to pass through many generations before Moses began his huge of writing the biblical story. The adds trustworthiness to the Bible as a historical record. Descendants of Noah's son. Genesis 10. Genesis chapter 10 is often called the Table of Nations. It is an amazing chapter. It traces the family descent of peoples all the way from Greece, Javan to the west to Media, Madai, and east, over 1,500 miles. It traces the ancestry of people living in southern Russia, Gomer, and Mehor in the north to Ethiopia in Africa, Kush in the south, nearly 2,000 miles apart. About 67 names are given. Whoever compiled this table of nations, which you all have there in your chart, I think it's in A. Look at the tables of nations. For example, the ancestry and the relationship of American Indian tribes has been very hard to discover. In spite of these difficulties, the table of nations has been found to be a record. I have two tables of nations there of real people who, in most cases, have been identified in records outside the Bible. See Ira M. Price, O.O.R. Sellers, E.L. Carson, The Monuments and the Old Testament, Judson Press, 1958, chapter 8. Also see chapter 6 through 8. It is difficult to determine whether some of the names in the table of nations are names of individuals or countries or cities or of ethnic groups. Some are clearly individuals like Gomer or Cush or Nimrod. Some are names of ethnic groups like Kittim, Cyprus, Jebusites, and Hittites. Some seem to be cities or lands like Sidon or Ophir. But this does not destroy the value of the list from understanding the relationship of peoples. God placed the nations and peoples where He wanted them to live. When the earth was repopulated after the flood, God determined the times for them and the exact places where they should live. Acts chapter 17, verse 26, Deuteronomy 32 through 8. People have frequently tried by war to take over lands from the people God placed in them. So we have the light on off. Or blow it. There we go. So you all look at the table of nations, right? And you all could see, I get a colored one for you all to see. So, you know, that's the first one. I think that would be A. So you can see in the green part, you see Ham and all the area where he populated, right? The Sahara Desert, yes, you got Put, you got Libyan Plateau, the Crash, all kinds of different things. Then you see Japheth in that orangey looking color up there. And then you see Sham in that look like yellowish color, right? So that's how, to the topic, those three sons were able to, after the flood, repopulate it. And then what I want you all to also look at, which is important, if you look at B, you all get B? Look at B now. B gave me back to school. You see Gomer, right? From the top, you see the children of Japheth, right? That's the Indo-Europeans, right? Then you get Gomer. Watch this now. Are people that live in the north, near Armenia and Media. And then you get the scripture voice and all for that. Then you get the Magog, probably the name of the North Barbarians near the Black Sea. And if you look on the map, you can see all these things with the Black Sea and all that stuff. That's why you need a map. Now, you can get through all this, but when you go home, this will be a part of your study. Then you get the Medai, that's the Medes, Jabal, the Greeks. And these people here from Japheth are the people who make music. And I can show you all that. That's where we get all our music from. Then the children of Shem. You see them? The Elamites, east of Mesopotamia. And look at the map, you get Mesopotamia. Then the Asher, you get the Syrians. That's up around the Tigris, upper Tigris rivers. Then you get the Arphaxads, ancestors of the Hebrews. Perhaps lived in East Assyria, near Luzi. And then you got the Lud, they from the Lydia, West Asia Minor, Iran, Syrian. Then to the bottom of there, you got the children of Ham, right? You get Cush from Ethiopia, this around Africa area. Mizraim, Egypt. Then you get Put, the kingdom of Put, both sides of the Red Sea. And then the Canaan, you read Canaan by the Canaanites. Okay. So you got that, and then you got another map, man. Boy, you don't get a lot of goodies tonight, boy. That goes on, okay? And then if you look at the table on D, now, watch this. D, man, listen, you all can keep this for a minute. That's a good table of the patriarch. And we come right from Abraham. You see that? From Adam. We come from Adam, and from Adam to Noah, you know it. Noah, after Lamech, right? And you see the age on they have the age on the side of it. The first number is the number how long they live. See, Adam, he lived 930. You see that? Seth lived 912, Enoch 905. Now watch this. Another thing of interest, right? Now, remember, after Noah, that's when God destroyed the earth with Tigam, right? And so, you see Noah's son, right after that, Shem. Now, one thing to look at too, after the flood, men started to live less. You see that? You all see that, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. You see, Adam lived 930, Seth lived 912, Enoch lived 905, Kenan lived 910, Mahalalel lived 895, Jared lived 962. And then on the next side, Lamech lived 77, Noah lived 950. Methuselah lived, the oldest man who lived, 969. But after the flood, you see the age start going up, down, right? Shem 600, after Fox 438, and then keep going down and down and down. So that's just a message of note. Now, so one of the integral things in terms of the world being repopulated was the three boys of Noah. They was in play. Ham, Shep, and Jacob. They was in play. They was fruitful and they did multiply. And they were all over. Their descendants was all over. Don't tell me how they did it. They did it. Now, another thing that was integral in the spreading of the races, but I like to use the word ethnicity, was, you all know just as good as I do, the Tower of Babel. We're going to come to that. Where God confused the language. So, let me just give you a little history on it. Okay. The Tower of Babel in Genesis 11, 1 through 9. Write it down to 1. God had directed Noah and his family to be fruitful and increase in number, multiply, literally swarm the earth and increase upon it. Genesis 9 and 7. As Noah's descendants migrated south and east from Mount Ararat, they came to a pleasant plain in Shinar. They did not want to be scattered from the comfortable location. Shinar may be equivalent to Sumner, the name of the world's oldest civilization, which developed in southern Mesopotamia, near where the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers merged. The Sumerians invented writing, they built cities and had schools, they organized governments, they made musical instruments and had a musical scale. They discovered medicines for many ills. They also had over 2,000 gods. As the Apostle Paul said, they exchanged the glory of an immortal God for image made to look like mortal man. Romans 1 and 23. To prevent their getting scattered and to make their name for themselves, they proposed to build a city with a tower to the heaven. Mesopotamia lacks building stones and timber. Therefore, they plan to use well-backed mud bricks with tar, asphalt, inverted commas, for mortar. Remains of numerous such structures have been found in Mesopotamia. Walls made of these materials were very strong. The typical shape of temple towers in Mesopotamia was pyramidal, with large flat steps or stages. On their side, these towers were called ziggurats. The name meant hill of heaven or mountain of God. The three most famous towers in Mesopotamia were: 1, the ziggurat of Ur, 70 feet; 2, the bird's Numra, the tower of Temel Naki. It is said to have stood 660 feet high. In ruins, it still rises to a place to a height of 200 feet. The fire-burning bricks of which it is built are still so well cemented together it is almost impossible to separate them or extract one whole. G.F. Owens, Archaeology under Bible, page 129-30. This is perhaps the ruins of the Tower of Babel. The Lord defeated the people's project by building the tower by confusing their language, so that they could not understand one another. The Lord said, let us go down and confuse their language. Genesis 11 and 7. Emphasis added. Compare Genesis 1 to 26. But this confusion of language, the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. The Lord will shall be done in spite of man's lack of cooperation. The Bible does not say that the confusion of language at Babel produced all of our presently used languages, but it seems to have been the start of the process of language division. George Smith, a pioneer translator of many Babylonian clay tablets, found one tablet from the library of King Ashurbanipal at Nineveh, which read, Babylon, brought to subjection, small and great, confounded their speech, their strong place, tower, all the day they founded. To their strong place in the night entirely he made an end. G. Smith, the Chaldean account of Genesis, New York Scribe, page 158 to 63. The separation of people into groups speaking the same language would lead to the, listen to this is important, the separation of people into groups by the confusion of language would lead to the inbreeding within the language group, and then to develop the development of race, ethnicities. According to Dr. Gray E. Parker, theoretically, it would take only one generation of controlled inbreeding to produce all the variations of skin color we see among the races today. H.M.B. Morris and G. Parker. What is creation science? El Khajan, C.A. Masterbooks, 1987, page 113. The name Babel means gate of God. Babel is similar to a sound to a verbal bala, which means to confuse. The name Babel or Babylon therefore came to stand for confusion, Genesis 11 and 9. From Shem to Abraham, Genesis 11:10 to 26, the chosen line of descendant that was begun in Genesis 5 resumes at Genesis 11 and 10. That verses is also start of the fifth account or generations. In Genesis, the account of Shem, see 2 to 4, 5 to 1. The account does not give total age of the patriarch as in Genesis 5, but the full age can be calculated easily. That's in verse D. That's D. It will give you the generations from the flood to Abraham. And you'll see the names of the patriots, the lifespan in Hebrew, lifespan in Greek, age son born in Hebrew, age son born in Greek. You're almost there. So first of all, we established two critical points. Number one, that the race ethnicity was started by Noah's son. And you get the map there where they went all over the known world at the time, repopulating the earth. Then, the next account was the Tower of Babel. And because of the language and the inbreeding, like the experts say within them, caused a lot of the distinction or the ethnicity. Now, question is, how did this known world, would be living in the Americas, Europe, and all around the world, how did that get populated? Remember, all of civilization started in Africa. Africa is the motherland. In fact, the Garden of Eden was in Africa. So let's look at this. Let's explore this theory. North America, Central, and South America are populated from people walking across from Asia, an ice bridge that was formed which allowed people to walk from what is known by modern day Russia to Alaska across the Berlin Straits. There was more polar climates as well, but not necessarily what I call it the Ice Age. It was also more land masses. So all this collapsed. All this allowed people to move across continents easier. In terms of migration, archaeologists and anthropologists determines all human beings comes from Africa. It is the motherland of all and is the cradle of civilization. So from Africa, people dispersed throughout the world to different places and adapt to their environment. That is where human beings vary in color, physique, and phenotype and adapted to the environment. I do not call it evolution, but adaptation. Then this is a theory which is called the Platonic theory. This suggests that the continents was at one point one last mass. If you look at South America bend and South Africa wraps, then you can almost fit into one another like a puzzle glove. So people suggest movement was easier because of the continent was close enough together to facilitate the movement. But this is, you all could Google, when you all have the time, Google, you all could Google Platonic theory, or what we call the Great Cool-Off or Die-Off. This was around 3000 BC. Okay, I tell you I was coming back to this human race thing, right? I mean, because the question is, there were 8 persons in the ark. Where did the races come from? And I tell you there was only one race. That's the human race. Now, let's explore this. I believe in one race, which is the human race. We are not vastly different from each other. But to think of a person in reference to black or white might be contributed to a social construct created during the transatlantic slave trade to demeanor or subjugate West African to use in the enslavement for economic advantage. Having said that, it still resonates the concept of race in the Bahamas despite social construct. So on one hand, it exists, and on the other hand, it does not. It is a mindset. Even though slavery was signed and abolished in 1832 and became law, many are still enslaved in their minds. It was the late reggae icon Bob Marley who sung, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. No one but yourself can free your mind." Yes, I believe to some respect he is right, except God can free a person if they allow him. I rather speak about ethnicity rather than races for these reasons. Ethnicity speaks to a person's language, culture, place of domicile, place of origin, culture, and traits. So it addresses diversities of culture, language, and distinctions amongst different people because of the geography or geographical location. God created all one race, and that's the human race. Apostle Paul writes in Galatians chapter 3, verse 28, "There's neither Greek nor Jew nor Greek. There's neither bond or free. There's neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus." In other words, what does it matter in you what does it matter once you are in Christ? Thank you.